The latest tech.
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
Interviews.
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that is happening.
Accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values.
This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome to another edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here. I am Marc and Steven Scott is standing by. If you guys want to get involved, our email address is feedback@doubletap.online. On Twitter, we are at DoubleTapCanada, and if you use the hashtag AskDoubleTap, we will get to your questions absolutely. Steven Scott, thank you for being here on yet another edition of Double Tap TV. It wouldn't be the same without you.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure as always.
This week, Stephen, we're going to be talking all about something that's pretty close to most people's hearts, especially during this COVID time, and that is technology in education, which I think has seen almost like a fast forward of evolution over the past 4 months, because everybody has had to find a way to either educate their children, educate themselves, or even just learn to work using technology in brand new ways, something that I think everybody is getting used to, are they not?
Yeah, exactly. It's a really interesting area because for me, this has been a real discovery adventure here because I don't have children. Some might say that's fortunate, some might say that's unfortunate. You can decide that for yourselves. And by the end of the period of lockdown, I think most of us may feel one way or another and be quite entrenched in those views. But in regards to education and continuing education, technology has played an ever more important role. And of course, it's always played an important role in children's education. We've heard a lot about programs to get more iPads into schools, to get kids in front of more computers, to teach kids to code as well, especially a brilliant way to get visually impaired children into potential new jobs of the future is to teach them how to code. So, you know, all of this is going on. Microsoft, of course, have been a big proponent of that, as have Apple. But we've seen all of this accelerate with the use of technology, in particular conferencing platforms to educate children remotely. And there are a lot of benefits to this, a lot of negatives as well. And I guess I put that question to you, Mark. I mean, you've got kids. How are you coping with it? And how are you coping with the education side? Because a lot of it is left to you to manage.
You know, a lot of it was, or at least is, in the hands of my kids, and they are very, very quick to use technology, so it's not a problem on their end. I find the biggest challenge is finding consistency on the teaching side, because teachers have been thrown into this as much as children have, and they're finding it hard to navigate some of these tools they've never had to use before. On the student side, it's just keeping up with, okay, what Zoom meeting am I getting into now? What are they learning? What information do they need to have in front of them? Will they pay attention? Will they not, you know, be hungry during the class? So many different things to consider, especially when it's in your home environment, which is really comfortable for kids, so they feel like they're at home. They don't realize they're at school.
And you know, some schools have been actually issuing technology. We've had Microsoft and Google both actually providing equipment so that kids, especially in the States, we've been hearing about this, where, you know, kids are actually getting hold of equipment that they can use so they can further educate themselves via their online learning platforms. And that's great, you know, and that is something that's really, really important. But, you know, there is a social aspect to this. We don't want to lose that. And I guess, although technology has been brilliant and will continue to be brilliant and hopefully be used more in all of this, I think we can all agree that one-to-one, that physical ability to meet, to go to that place, just to meet other kids is so valuable. We can't lose sight of that in amongst the technological revolution that is ongoing.
We've got two great guests upcoming on this week's show. Paul Hanash is a teacher at Beechwood Elementary School, happens to be a teacher for my kids. He's going to talk all about his transition. He teaches phys ed and music. So think about those types of classes. How on earth do you transition those to an online platform? That's got to be extremely, extremely difficult, Stephen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, the simple way I get around it was never doing it. That was the that was the easiest way.
Our second guest on this week's show is Microsoft VP of Education, Marc Seaman. He's going to talk about, obviously, the Microsoft angle of things. They're really upping their game when it comes to Teams. So those two guests are going to be joining us on this week's show. I hope you guys stick around. If you want to get involved, again, it's feedback at doubletap.online. And, of course, on Twitter, we are at DoubleTapCanada. And use that hashtag AskDoubleTap. We are back in just a moment here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. This is Double Tap TV.
We are back on Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the ride. I am Marc and Steven Scott is standing by with one of my children's teachers from Beechwood Elementary School here in Montreal.
That's right, Mark. I am here today with Paul Hanash to talk about how things have changed since coronavirus and how teaching, education in this new world is changing as a result. Paul, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Let's get into it then. So obviously things changed massively at the start of this year when you were told, right, that's it, the schools are closing, you're going to have to work from home, you're going to have to teach these kids as well and create your lesson plans and keep doing what you're doing. How did you manage?
Well, it was definitely a challenge, not only for myself, but for administration and all the teachers as well. In fact, teaching did not even occur for the first couple of months because it was something new for all of us. And so we went on a lockdown March 13th, and there was talks of going back and not going back. So we really only got a system going sometime in mid-May, so a couple months later.
And what was that system? What did you end up doing?
Well, there were talks about going back to the classroom. And our government, we're in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada. So there were talks about going to the classroom and social distancing. So going from classes of 20 down to 6. And you could just imagine it was a logistical nightmare. And it was. And we just had to work within constraints and figure it out. Fortunately, they said, you're not going back to a classroom. You're going to be doing online teaching. And so that is how we adapted. And we did that for the remainder of June. Because
of course you've got the challenge of actually, providing the lesson plans, but you've also got to think about safety of the children, of yourself, of your family, all of that, everything comes into play. So I guess for you, the idea of working remotely was a positive. Did you embrace it at first? Yeah, it was a challenge. It was definitely an opportunity. It was something that a lot of us have never been down before, and you can imagine it was a challenge for parents, for students, for teachers, and administration. What we ended up doing was, instead of having your typical 5-hour day, our school's from 8 to 2:30, what we decided to do was each student will have 1 hour of Zoom during a scheduled time block. And so what we had were the grade 1 signing in at 10 o'clock, the grade 2s signing in at 11 o'clock, the grade regularly. And so 5-hour classes or 6-hour days were turned down to 1 hour. Wow, that's a lot. And you've got to cram a lot into that as well, because these kids still need to be educated, and you still have to give as much information, I guess, as you would normally in that class, but you only have that little amount of time. That must be difficult, no? Well, Stephen, that's right. So usually those 5 hours of teaching, there's always prep involved with that time. And so as teachers, we found us doing just as much work prepping for that 1 hour as you would for a 5-hour, because now the lessons have to be tight and parents are watching. And, we really had to bring our A game, and it's Zoom. You need to hold the attention of younger students for an hour. And so actually some of those blocks were down to half an hour or 45 minutes, because screen time is a lot of time for students. So we had to be on our A game, we had to bring our best, and we had to be clear and concise in our instruction. Yeah, that's an awful lot. You forget about that. Obviously, kids, they have to stay focused in front of the screen. They don't really want to do that unless it's, something like, Frozen 2 or something they might want to watch. They probably don't want to look at URI for an hour at a time. So that could be a challenge, I guess. But, in terms of the technology, you mentioned Zoom. How valuable has that been? Well, it was a resource that was provided to us for free as teachers. We did not have to pay for it. It wasn't the best. You had to send out links. So there are, every technology has their pros and their cons. So regularly sending out a link to parents, and parents emailing you saying, hey, I didn't get the link yet. So parents were actually being teachers as well. They had to set up their in-home classrooms. And so my heart went to the parents a lot as well, because I said, this is not what they signed up for, being teachers. So we were tag teaming, making sure that the students had their links. Zoom is kind of funny too, because some students in the grade 6, they were able to find out that they were able to draw on the screen, and I did not know how to get them to stop or get around that. And it was distracting for some of the other students. I would just have to say, please
stop drawing on the screen, or other students would, unmute themselves as soon as you mute them. And that's kind of like talking without raising your hand. And so it was new territory to manage. And so they had the disturbances, but as a teacher, you had to find ways to do classroom management online. Imagine that, classroom management online.
Well, see, I'm in the fortunate position here, I think, of not having kids. So I don't have this problem at all. I've managed to avoid all this. And I think I'm in a way, I'm quite pleased about that. But I think it's interesting, you talk about the challenges parents had to face, of course, because they had to conduct a lot of these classes at home with your help as well. So you were working doubly, triply as hard as you would have been before, I guess. In terms of that technology, though, using Zoom to communicate is one thing, but how did you get lesson plans through? Was it just as simple as sending an email, or did you employ some technology for that?
Well, as a music specialist, so I teach music to the school, the students had to send their projects in online, sending videos. So we did something called the Cup Song Challenge. And so the students were required to film themselves, even teaching their family the cup song of a 30 to 60 second clip. And so, they didn't have instruments to take from the school. So how do you improvise? You get a cup and you figure it out. And so assessment as well was also totally different. So now students were sending in videos, and we modified it so that instead of grades, it was a pass or a fails. So really just about participation. And so we were trying to go for high. It wasn't mandatory, but we still had about 50-60% of students who were sending in their homework to be assessed on a pass-fail, and they passed.
It's quite ingenious what you managed to do, and the cup song sounds actually really ingenious when you think about it. That's brilliant. Obviously, the challenges for many children are, getting used to this new environment, not seeing friends, and all of that through lockdown. That was the biggest challenge, I guess, for many. But for those children with special educational needs, what are the challenges likely to be for them during this period? And can you speak to that? I mean, what are the challenges there?
So, Stephen, you bring up a really good point in terms of having students with special needs. And for Zoom, or at least getting students online, they sign in on. So you create the link, you put it out there, and they come to you. Well, we found with students with some special needs, they weren't signing in on. So apart from just, having 80% of students signing in, that's still 20% of families not signing in. And that's okay, it wasn't mandatory. And so what we did for the students with special needs who didn't sign in one particular circumstance, as a group of teachers, we went to go visit him at their home with their parents. So we social distance. And that's his role as a teacher. You don't put a link, well, they didn't sign in, well, that's it. So too bad, so sad. They didn't attend. So as a teacher, it's really important that we find ways to connect with our students. And so a few of us, there was 3 of us staff who particularly went to one home to go to a dearly loved student because they didn't sign on. And just to have that connection, it wasn't a classroom, it was just hanging out in their backyard, seeing them, but just to get that connection, because so much of teaching it's not so much cognitive, it's the affective, it's the emotional. There's a quote that says, students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so part of our role is building that relationship with the students and the parents. So it was a challenge, but it was really fun. And, because of COVID, we didn't necessarily would have had that opportunity prior. And so I found myself even personally connecting with many parents in a much meaningful and deeper way. So I enjoyed the big challenge overall.
It's great to hear a really positive view on this, and I think that, as you say, a huge amount of positives have come out of this, just even caring for ourselves a bit more as humans and thinking more about ourselves and each other, I think is fantastic as well. Paul, it sounds like you're having a good time with it. I want to get involved in the cup song. I might make a video for you, you never know. But for now, Paul Hanash at Beechwood Elementary in Montreal, teacher there. Thank you so much for giving us your time on Double Tap TV.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Stephen. My pleasure.
That is Paul Hanash, teacher at Beechwood Elementary in Montreal, Quebec, with Stephen Scott. But we've got a very special treat for you guys lined up. Right after a quick break, we're going to be speaking to somebody over at Microsoft to talk all about their technology and how it's playing its role in education. It is Double Tap TV. He is Steven Scott. I am Marc Aflalo. Get involved by emailing us feedback@doubletap.online. And of course on Twitter, it is @DoubleTapCanada. We take a quick break and come back with Microsoft.
Love Double Tap TV? Listen to AMI Audio for Double Tap Canada every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for news and reviews on everything tech. This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome back to Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here. As always, get involved by emailing feedback@doubletap.online. Of course, that's our email address. And on Twitter, it is @DoubleTapCanada if you want to get in touch with us. Steven, you're sitting down with one of our good friends over at Microsoft to talk all about their role in education.
Marc Steven from Microsoft, really great to have you with us. And obviously education is a big topic at the moment, of course, as a result of lockdown, lots of children losing out on education in some parts of the world, but technology is helping. So let's start with Microsoft and its learning that has come about as a result of all of this change in the way that we live our lives. How is technology changing that and helping with education?
You know, we've seen obviously a real shift in the last number of months towards remote learning, towards collaboration, communication, content sharing. As Microsoft, we have a platform called Teams that has been heavily adopted from coast to coast, both in higher ed and K-12. And the beauty of the tool is that it really allows this blended environment where students, teachers, professors, educators can access the learning from not just a video component, but a full collaboration environment where they're able to engage, share content, communicate, and have a full, integration of the technology. And when you combine that with the new features that are included for the video components, such as up to 49 tiles, 7x7 screens, the ability to have breakout rooms, to raise your hand, to have muted components. It really creates an environment that, even in a blended model where technology will be, plays a big part in how students and teachers can interact and share and have a continued educational experience that really also deals with equity and accessibility challenges as well by creating a platform that every student has access to.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because technology can be in some ways a great equalizer, can't it? And that can be a real benefit to many people. But we're seeing now with technology being used more in this way, and as you say, blended learning, one side effect, I guess, of coronavirus that we're all going to be living with for some time, potentially, until a vaccine is found. We're going to be living in this world that we may be moving in and out of local lockdowns, or we may need to move towards more blended learning as opposed to getting all the kids back to school as much as we'd like to. And technology can, of course, play that part. Now, like you say, Microsoft has done a lot here. In a very short space of time, programs like Teams have been catapulted onto this stage, being used much more widely than perhaps they were intended to be used at this stage. I imagine when Teams was being rolled out, the intention was that these products would roll out gradually. Suddenly, everyone's jumping on them. What were the challenges there?
Well, I think in Canada in particular, there had already been a strong adoption of the Office 365 platform, and Teams obviously being part of that was a component where we had already seen some institutions like school boards across BC, Coquitlam as an example, School District 43, Vancouver District, numerous school boards and higher ed institutions leveraging the platform. But where it usually starts, Stephen, is the adoption with faculty and staff. And that was probably the biggest leap we saw in the recent months, is just the adoption of the tool of Teams, not just for remote working, but also for the remote working and meetings. And then the incredible professional development and engagement in the educator community wanting to learn more on how to leverage the tool in a classroom environment. In the last quarter alone, over 35,000 educators have been trained on leveraging Teams. So we've seen close to 70% of all faculty across the country adopt Teams in terms of some remote working and learning, and really now it's continuing the evolution of professional development and learning, and helping the educators really learn how to leverage these types of platforms to enable these hybrid environments. And again, beyond just video conferencing, but certainly file sharing, content creation, leveraging the whole collaboration environment so that there's an engaged population of students and population of teachers working together.
And I guess a big part of that is accessibility, of course, for a lot of blind students who want to learn, who want to continue to learn, being able to access programs like Teams, and it is a brilliantly accessible program, despite the wealth of what it has and built into it and its capability. It is a very accessible product, and you must be very proud of that. But I guess that is the ethos at Microsoft. Certainly I hear that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the journey really that we've had in our focus has always been on empowering every student to accomplish and do more. And the real focus has been on the word every. And we've started that journey a number of years ago with engineering and creating, whether it's been OneNote, whether it's been in the Teams platforms, but immersive reader as an example, translator, accessible math, different tools to really create accessibility so that every student, because every student learns differently and engages differently, and we know that at least 1 in 5 student has some form of either learning or accessibility challenge. So creating tools that are designed to support every single student has always been at the core of our mandate in education, and we've really seen that in the evolution of the tools that are available for the learning environment, leveraging technologies such as, like I said, OneNote Classroom, Teams, and really building that as part of the core engineering that goes into the product development.
Now, without pinning you down and asking you, what's next for Teams? What's next for Teams?
Well, like I said, we just talked about some of these new features that are being introduced over the coming weeks and months, including the 49 tiles and this together mode. And I don't know if you've seen the together mode in Teams, but it allows to really recreate a classroom environment with students. The hand raising feature, the breakout rooms. We know that increase in capacity for, especially in higher ed, for 250 attendees in an environment, in a Teams meeting. So number of great features that are again designed. What's been really interesting, it's been designed on feedback that we're getting directly from educators and from students, and that goes into the product development. And it's the feedback that we're trying to be listen and be as engaged with our customers and the community, the education community, to build these features so that we're responding to their needs.
Well, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best with your products and your projects as well.
Thank you guys, and thank you for taking part in this week's show. Also, special thanks to Paul Hanash over at Beechwood Elementary. On behalf of Stephen Scott, I am Marc Aflalo. Thank you guys for being here at home. We will see you on the next episode of Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap.
Hosted by Marc Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Editing, Will Attar. Production assistants, Wendy Kaufman. Integrated Described Video Specialist, Ron Rickford. Coordinating Producer, Jennifer Johnson. Director Production, Karen Nye. Director Programming, Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming, John Melville. President and CEO, David Errington. Copyright 2020, Accessible Media, Inc.